There's that idea when you work in HR is for the people. How do you see that?
I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that human resources actually has.
Decisions need to be taken that may put the business side against the people side. Did you ever have disagreed with the leadership over a people decision, and how do you handle it?
It is absolutely our core of our function to be that truth, or at least that feedback giver.
What is company culture for you?
Good question.
Culture must have the answer.
Yeah, and I fear, because we talked about disagreeing, that I probably would disagree with you.
What's the best way or the best approach to assess the health of an organizational culture?
Speak to as many people as possible at all levels. You listen to their stories. You will get a sense of what this culture is like.
Yeah, sometimes when someone joins a company in HR, very self-motivated, lots of passion, trying to put everything in place, and then starts reading the exit interviews, sometimes it's a shock.
It is.
What's your trick to not let your personal perspective on company culture be biased by other people's negative perception?
While you get really the sense okay, this is coming again and again and again, I think I can trust it. We use Slido. Anybody can write in Slido any question, and you can actually vote which one is the best question that you're most interested in, and nobody will ever find out who wrote actually that question. And once we started that, we got the real questions and the real topics.
How important is leadership buy-in when you're trying to shift or strengthen the culture?
By far, the single most important aspect of all cultural change.
In the last years, there was this change to remote or even hybrid. This has affected companies' culture somehow.
Oh yeah. People are sitting at home, they just open their laptop in the morning and they close their laptop in the evening. Therefore, a lot of these chances to feel, touch, and know what company culture you're in has disappeared.
What are the top 3 skills that every HR professional should develop right now? And AI is not a valid answer because you already proved it.
You're mean.
Quilco, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for accepting being here. Quilco, it's one of the most curious names that I've met in my life, and even from previous guests. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Quilco, right?
It's Quilco, yeah. It's very hard to write because it's with a Q, U, and stuff. But yeah, it's a Bolivian name. My mom was born and raised in Bolivia. And when she met my father in a train in Germany and never went back, she wanted that something is related still to her upbringing country. And so it's a Quechua name. And therefore, it's Quilco, which is very Bolivian, and Hasemann, which is super German. So that's how the combination came up.
Sounds German.
Yeah.
The name, is it like an Indian tribe that you mentioned?
Yeah, Quechua. It's the Quechua Indians. So they are in the Altiplano, so in the highlands of Bolivia and Peru. That's where it's a little bit the same area where most people know, like the Inca.
Have you been there? Have you visited the place?
Yes. Yeah, because my grandfather, grandmother, and aunts and uncles lived there, so we have visited quite often, yes.
Should be an amazing trip.
It is it's a long trip. It's a very long trip from Germany, but it's worth every minute.
You're raising my interest in visit the zone one day if possible.
You should.
So you just deviated my attention from our conversation because of the topic.
Sorry.
Because it's interesting for me. But as an introduction, so you present yourself as being Chief People and Culture Officer at a company called OUTFITTERY. So Chief People and Culture Officer. That's another special thing here on your presentation. Why the name?
Yeah, the problem is twofold. Like in most companies, it's called CHRO, so
like in the
Human Resource Officer. Exactly. But the problem is I don't like the word human resources. I've never liked it because for me, it always has this touch like human resources sounds like humans are a resource like, for example, capital or any kind of real estate or anything that needs to be kind of like used or exploited to get to outcome. And for me, humans are something very unique and special. So therefore, I didn't like human resources. So I liked people. And then my boss asked me, like CEO Julia said, like, okay, Quilco, so if it's not CHRO, we can call you CPO, which is another form that a lot of companies use, Chief People Officer, because we already had a CPO because we have a product officer.
Right.
So a Chief Product Officer, so that's gone as well. So we decided to go for what my department is actually called, and we call ourselves People and Culture. So that's how the Chief People and Culture Officer came about.
But curious enough, one thing that caught my eye in your profile is the fact that you also present yourself as, or you call yourself, the people guy, and between brackets, even between brackets. So where does this name comes from?
It was just when I had to put up my LinkedIn profile, and there's so many professionals, and they tell you that you need to have like this compelling profile, etc. And I have no creativity, and so I felt like, if people want to find out in a nutshell what I'm all about, then I would call myself, I'm the people guy of the company. But in principle, also as a human, for me, it's kind of like there's nothing more exciting on the planet than human beings. And so for me, I feel like I have the privilege to do my biggest hobby also as a job. And that's why I called myself people guy. It has no deeper meaning.
Because since the beginning of my career, I've been somehow also called like the people person, the people guy, because, there's that idea when you work in HR is for the people. How do you see that? Does it make any sense? Because either the dichotomy that normally exists is you either support the people or the business. But this make any sense for you?
Yeah, but I think that's actually, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that human resources, let's call it that way, actually has, because I think we are in our role torn between the two. On one side, we are supposed to represent the employer, so we are for the organization. We are the people who actually then in restructuring times need to, for example, fire people, and we are supposed to kind of like lead processes like this, or where there's changes coming, etc. So on that side, I think that's why a lot of employees are often afraid of the personnel of the human resource or the people department, because they represent like the hard fact of the company. At the same time, I think it is all our understanding that we try to be there for the people, so that, for example, when there is change, we are hopefully the ones facilitating that the change happens in a way that is most easy for people to follow, or that we're trying to make leaders better leaders, so that like the employees have a place where they can dwell and develop and have fun and have psychological safety and stuff like that. So I think that's like we have both roles, and I think we cannot go one or the other, because if you're only for the company, like you will have zero trust, and the people will actually needs a function or something that supports also them. If you're only going for the people, then you're missing out the strategic aspect. So I think we actually have to do both.
It needs to be. So I was laughing and hearing you because you made me remind some episodes in my past where there was rumors around if you were invited for a Skype call, a surprise Skype call, and I was in the call, me as HR, that meant that it's going to be a surprise.
Bad news.
Bad news. Exactly. So to the point that if I had sent some kind of invitation to someone and the person was not expecting it, but the call itself had a purpose, which was not being a termination call, people were always suspicious, like, this is just a fake name.
It's just a fake name, yes.
Yeah, in reality, I'm going to be fired. So the thing was like, I sent the invitation, and then on Slack, I got the message saying, hey, is everything okay? So what's the purpose of the call? It's exactly how, as is.
What the title says, it's nothing more or less, yes.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Because if you're going to be fired, you'll never notice. In remote.
Yeah, but that shows the difficulty of also the perception of our function.
So and then I guess that being at your level, higher in the management level, sometimes you need to discuss with the leadership teams. Decisions need to be taken that may put the business side against the people side. Did you ever have disagreed with the leadership over a people decision, and how do you handle it? Because I guess that lots of HR professionals deal with the same situation, which is, hey, I need to stand for the people here on this decision. How do you do that?
Well, number one, I think we all should do it quite often. My reality, I do it, it feels like every day, to disagree with like the peers in the executive team, or especially also with my boss, with my CEO, because I think it's part of our role, because we should be the feedback givers. We should be the coaches of these leaders. And if we don't have the relationship, the trust with them, that we can be the ones also holding hard truth, or at least a different opinion in their face, how do we give them the chance to actually make better decisions, or how to become better or develop? So I think it is absolutely our core of our function to be that truth, or at least that feedback giver. Number one, we're just giving the feedback. Like if my boss, like our CEO, at the end decides differently, that's up to her. Like, but I think she still needs that counterpart that tells her like, no, I see that completely different, and like very practical. Why I think like it happens all the time. We're discussing, I would say, talent management. We're discussing a lot of people all the time, and there I have made the experience over all my years that a lot of leaders again and again fall into the trap of good performance is also seen as potential. So the best person in a role is also then the ones considered like having the highest potential to become the next leadership level, etc. And from my understanding and all the science that I have read, there is not a lot of like it's not the same. It's just not just so. There, I think, for again, like it is us as people, persons, and HR leaders who need to step in and says like, sorry, I hear you, great performance, but for the role that we're discussing, we need very different skills, and I don't see that with these persons. So that's one example. But also on communication. Like with my boss, like we have always this, like when we're communicating into the organization, I see that a lot of leaders have that tendency that they would like, not because they don't want to lie, but they want to do a little bit of greenwashing, because they feel like, yeah, we don't want to make the employees concerned about maybe bad numbers, or they need to be motivated, and if we are now very transparent, they might be like getting anxiety, etc. And then for me, I think it is this role just like, yes, I hear you and I like your attitude, but I think it's wrong. I actually believe we need to be transparent, because people will find out, and that the biggest value that we have is the trust that we have among us in the company and in our culture. So these are examples where I feel like it is needed for us to disagree quite often.
One of the things that you said is that sometimes the leaders are very focused on the business, and they're like a unique view on the problem, and you offer that opposite view that would make them think. The feedback, you like the ambassador for what people think, and give like a contrary view that is also important, right? So that also means that you as a person need to have that confidence amongst the employees to funnel to you all the concerns and all the other points of views that you will take to the leadership team and represent people in that forum, right? So I guess that only helps, and that only happens when there's some kind of culture in the company that facilitates that those concerns and fears travel between people and get to you, right?
To speak up, yes.
Because people get to you, speak up and say, hey, I'm concerned about this, and I feel safe to share with you as people and culture officer, etc. So that culture needs to be created. which leads to my question. So we'll talk about culture. I think everyone understands what we're talking about. But if we ask someone, what is company culture? I've never heard the same explanation from two different people. And I don't understand why. Because if you go to the textbooks, the definition of company culture should be easily defined there. But then on a daily basis, people experience company culture differently and define it differently. So then I would like to ask you, Quilco, what is company culture for you?
Good question. What is company culture? I try to keep it very simplistic. I usually say company culture is the way we do things here. Not more, not less. So it's a feeling of that people, after a while being with a company, they get a sense of how are things done at this place. And these could be processes, like a lot of processes, very little processes. It could be a lot of hierarchy or little hierarchy, but it's also communication, kind of like how do we people speak to each other, peer to peer? How do you speak to your bosses? Is it very casual? Is it very formal? Like, should you better be afraid or can you be very relaxed? So it's this general sense of how are things done here, which for me is the definition of a company culture. And people sometimes think about it, but even if you don't think about it, you are super aware of a company culture once you have been with a company for a while.
Allow me to offer my definition of company culture, and then you tell me if this makes any sense. So for me, company culture is like the glue that is between everything in the company, like the cement that is holding the pieces or the bricks of the company, in a sense that it's written somewhere, is passed verbally or through things that you see in the wall, etc., to behaviors, but ultimately serves the purpose of, in case of uncertainty, if you don't know what to do in a certain situation, how to respond, how to deal with a problem, etc., you should find the answers in the company culture. Right? Anything that you need to do and you are not sure how to do, the company culture should answer that question. Even if it's dealing with clients, internal issues, with your manager, how to communicate with the peer, the culture must have the answer.
Yeah, and I fear, because we talked about disagreeing, that I probably would disagree with you. Okay. Because if I listen to you, there are two things that come to my mind where I struggle with. Number one, if you say company culture is the glue, that for me, at least in my ears, sounds very positive. So like as company culture is something positive. And for me, it's not. For me, company culture is neutral. There are positive aspects of a company culture and negative. Like you can be, the company culture could be that you are a very dynamic and fast company culture, or you can be very slow and thorough and detailed and numbers and maybe analytical. So both would be a sense for me how company culture. But I wouldn't say that either or is good or bad. It sometimes can be good in the environment and the customer and the status that you are in, and sometimes bad. So for me, it's the glue sounds very positive. But if you are in a company culture that is slow, but the dynamic of the market is now going haywire, then I would say it's not the glue. It's something that you have established over years, but you actually need to get rid of it because otherwise you might be out of business. So that was the first one. The second one is that you say, if I have a question and I'm unsure about, then the company culture should help me know how to do it. That for me goes very much into a concept which I would call for me our values. And for me, company cultures and values are also a very different thing. So to know kind of like how do I approach customers this way or the other way, if it's almost an ethical question, I would say it comes from the values, and these are written down so you could actually maybe check it out and read and then get your orientation. But company culture could be actually that we are not customer centric because we are so much dealing with our product, because we are so crazy about quality or about innovation that we actually forget about our customers. And if you are in that type of culture, it's hard to to learn or to read how do you should behave. So therefore, for me, it's kind of like that's my take.
Yeah, sometimes these areas overlap a bit between culture, values, missions, and other
totally, yes.
things. So yeah, but you mentioned something interesting, which is the culture could be bad, and everyone knows that the culture could be toxic, and it's a reason for people to leave the companies, etc. So imagine that someone wants to measure or assess or diagnose the health of their own culture, especially if someone new is joining a company and doesn't know if it's toxic or not. So what's the best way or the best approach to assess the health of an organizational culture?
Again, I fear that I'm always exactly that I'm coming to with very simplistic answers, like speak to as many people as possible at all levels, like from top to bottom, because if you speak to people and you listen to their stories, you will get a sense of what this culture is like, because people tend to tell you the good and the bad. I mean, of course, it helps to have some good related questions prepared. So there are good questions that you can ask. But in principle, is this getting out there and asking the people, like, what do you like about the company? What is frustrating? Like when you're talking to your wife, your partner, your whatever, like what would you praise about us? Kind of like what do you think is exciting about our journey? Like how do you like the path forward? What is on your daily basis, like what are you struggling with? And then people tell the stories about too much process, too little process, a good boss, a bad boss, and the slow or the fast or whatever. And after you're doing that with many people, because you need like this minimum n like amount of people, then you start getting a sense of what this culture is. That's what I usually do when I get into a new job. The second is, after you have that feeling like, now I think I understand, I would always recommend actually writing it down, making a PowerPoint presentation if it's needed, and say like, this is my impression of the good and the bad of the culture. And then play it back to the organization. Start with the leadership teams. Like, so I did that with the executive team. I said like, okay, I'm now here for 8 weeks. I have talked to as many people as possible. Here's my take on our company culture. And then when they read it, you can see it, how it resonates or doesn't resonate. And usually it's like, oh yeah, oh, I don't like it, but it's true. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that describes it.
They know.
And then ideally, you do it even with the bigger company. So I tried to, like in an all hands meeting, share my findings with the entire organization. So like, hey, I'm the new people guy, and I have now tried to assess the culture, and this is what I found. Like, does that resonate? Is that the company that you have been in for much longer than I have? And then you usually can like filter out like, you get some more nuances of what it's like. That was second step. And then the third one, I would say, to keep updated on the culture, I would say usually it's ideal to do, we are doing it every half year, like a pulse check or an employee survey, where you are asking also cultural questions to kind of like learn, like, has something changed, or are we still at that same stage that we had half a year ago or 1 year or 2 years ago, whatever. So kind of like to be staying up to date. So these would be my assessment like approaches.
In my career, I always felt that the best source for truth when it comes to culture is not speaking to people. It's better than speaking to people, because when you speak to people, there's always that layer of maybe it's a desirable answer that I'm getting here, because you never know where this information can go to. But it's better than that. I thought it's reading the exit interviews, if the company has a record of that.
Yes.
When someone is at the stage that is leaving, they just say everything as it is without any constraint, right? And sometimes when someone joins a company in HR, it goes very, very self-motivated, lots of passion, trying to put everything in place, and then starts reading the exit interviews. Sometimes it's a shock.
It is. And we're doing it not with culture in our organization. We're doing it with our values. So we have, I think, 6 to 9 exit interview questions, And one is exactly related to our values, because we wanted, when we introduced our values, we didn't want that there's like these posters on the wall that everybody says like, oh, yeah, okay. Now another like leadership team that just wants to call themselves like a value-driven company, but there's no substance to it. But we said like, we want our values to be like real. And we felt the same way. Like, how do you get the most honest answer is when people are leaving because they have nothing to lose. And so we asked, like, how did you perceive our values? Was it true? Was it just marketing that we put on the website? Or is it like actually lived? And people are super honest. And that's where you get the real answer. So absolutely agree.
What's your trick to not let your personal perspective on company culture be biased by other people's negative perception?
Well, probably I would say we're pretty much biased all the time. So I can just try to reduce the bias that I have. And exactly as I mentioned, like I think it's a question of amount. So like if you're just like doing 5, 6, 7, and 10 interviews, like it could be very much that somebody like plants a seed into your brain and you believe that something is, which actually is just a very individual topic. When I started, I had about, I think, at the end of my assessment, I was somewhere between 50 and 100 interviews that I took for it at all levels. There, after a while, you get like really the sense like, okay, this is coming again and again and again. I think I can trust it. If some things come only up once or twice, I would just, even if they might be right, I would at that point say like, better not take it too serious. And I think if you are doing an anonymous survey with employees, that's also very helpful, because once they know they can't be tracked, you don't know who gave what answer, the likelihood of being open and honest is much higher. And we actually took it like to the next level, because at one point of time I suggested that we're doing an open mic session at our all hands meetings, meaning we said we won't be so transparent. Anybody can ask any question, as nasty as it might be, and we as the executive team will answer. And so that nobody is afraid that they actually say, because in the first instance, we tried it with an open mic and 0 good questions came. And you felt like, okay, we haven't reached that trust level yet, that people are not afraid that if they ask something nasty, that they might get any kind of repercussions afterwards. So next time we used Slido and said like, anybody can write in Slido any question, and you can actually vote which one is the best question that you're most interested in, and nobody will ever find out who wrote actually that question. And once we started that, we got the real questions and the real topics, and it was exciting, because then you really know what's on people's mind. If they are really able to be completely transparent of what they think, what they believe about your vision, your strategy, your people, your leadership, whatever, then and we loved it so much, so we have it now every quarter. Every quarter we have an open mic sessions with a Slido, and everybody already knows kind of like, okay, they can write anything.
So besides Slido for the questions, in order to make the engagement surveys, which tool do you recommend?
Well, I looked at many because we didn't have any. We at the end used now Culture Amp. But I was selecting between, I think, 16 or 17, and I think I had a short list of 2 or 3, and I think the last ones were quite similar. So I think the only thing that I think which is interesting, like a lot of tools are trying to combine surveys, performance management, people development. And I think depending on which company you're using, they all had a different starting point. And I still feel that in their DNA, they're still best with what they started. So Culture Amp started with the cultural assessment and then went on into people development and performance management. And therefore, I picked them. Other companies started the other way around. They came from performance management, where they are excellent, and then later on develop into also surveys. But I think in the end, it's not a question of the best tool.
Culture Amp is very interesting, because not only it's confidential, anonymous, etc., but you also can slice the data by segments, You can unlock the data for managers just by, you give the visibility or whatever they just need to see in the results. And then you have the engagement drivers, the scores, you can compare with the benchmark from previous years, from the sector. So it seems like I'm sponsored here by CHRO, but
and it's easy to handle.
Very easy, very intuitive. And it's not only for HR. Once you unlock and give leaders visibility over their own data from their own team, it's very insightful, to the point that in my career, sometimes in the first attempts that I'm bringing the engagement surveys, there is resistance from the leaders in a sense that, hey, here comes HR with HR conversations about engagement, whatever, what's the value in this? And then once they see the results, they're like, wow. And on the next run, they are the first ones coming to you and say, where are my results? Unlock my results. I want to see. That's the power of this information. It's very insightful. It just takes from the water cooler conversation, converts the water cooler conversations into real insights, objective insights. And any leader that is a good leader and plans to continue to be a good leader needs to go through this data and work with it, with action plans then later to address the issues that are raised by these surveys. And Lattice is also another tool that works very well in that. So what we're just describing here situations where you sense there is a problem in the culture, you assess the culture, you get results, and then there's something that needs to change with the culture, right?
Often it does, yeah.
You often, there's always something to be improved. That's why we both have jobs in that sense. How important is leadership buy-in when you're trying to shift or strengthen the culture?
I would say it's by far the single most important aspect of all cultural change is the buy-in in combination with role modeling. I think if you want to change culture, it needs to start from the top. And it is not the communication that is so powerful, like, oh, we want or we stand for or whatever, but it is actually the deeds, the what leadership is actually doing, how they start behaving differently than in the culture that they had before. And if you have a CEO and an executive team that really is on board with the cultural change and themselves start with different behavior, I have made the experience. It is quite amazing how fast a company culture can change. But ideally, it also goes along with a leadership team that is willing to apologize and to admit mistakes. Because also us, kind of like we say, like, this is the new behavior that we want. There is sometimes times when you fall back by just default into something that you had before. And then sometimes you have the privilege that people are actually calling you out on it. So like, well, Quilco, but what you just did, kind of like, wasn't that like the past? Didn't we kind of say we are not doing this any longer? And then to have the courage to say like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't behave according to our new culture or values, etc. I think that is super powerful if you have that. Because people smell if leaders are just asking for the others to do a cultural change, but are not willing to do it themselves.
Quilco, you look like you are working remotely. Do you work remotely, hybrid?
No, this is my office.
That's your office.
That's my office.
That's the coolest office I've seen.
Thank you. Well, we are a styling company, so maybe it has to do with.
To be honest, I'm looking you at a very small window here on the streaming platform, but it looked like your living room or something like that. So
thank you. That's a compliment.
You work fully in an office.
Well, we are a remote first company, but I'm one of the few ones who are coming to the office every day because number one, with my family and dog, etc. at home, I really have a hard time to focus. And number two, I became a people guy because I wanted to be with the people. And we only have very few people who need to come to the office every day, but at least these ones I want to see almost every day. So that's why I'm in the office, yes.
Cool. So you are mixed in of remote, of in office with other people. So in the last years, there was this change to remote or even hybrid. This has affected companies' culture somehow. How do you see it, Quilco? Broader than just your company in general.
Yeah. And I think it is broader. It is not very unique. I mean, as I mentioned, we are a remote first company. So we have about at least 90% of the people are working remote, and probably 10% would come to the office at max. And I think it has dramatically changed, especially the topic of culture, because in my personal take is company cultures became even more important than before, because in the old world, there were aspects that kind of like came automatically that helped you to dive into company cultures, like the way the offices looked like, the time that you can spend going for lunch or with your colleagues, or that the time that you're spent at the water cooler, at the coffee machine, etc. So there were so many aspects where you smelled, felt, saw company culture. That was all stripped away. All of a sudden, people are sitting at home, in their kitchen, at their office, in the living room, wherever they sit, and they just open their laptop in the morning and they close their laptop in the evening. And therefore, a lot of these chances to feel, touch, and know what company culture you're in has disappeared. And I feel that if you are not even taking more effort to work on your company culture, your employees feel more and more like they are freelancers, or they are like these legion soldiers. And for them, if you like work for Outfittery today and in the same role tomorrow they work for another company, kind of like doesn't matter. It's just a logo. Everything else is the same. And if you don't want that to happen, that people still, if they are sitting in their living room or in their kitchen every day, but they still feel that they are part of something very unique, that they only get with these people, with this company, with this brand, I think you need to invest even more into company culture. So I think the topic became much more elevated through the remote work.
You need to put twice the effort or even more.
Time, money, whatever, exactly, to get to the same outcome, probably. Yes.
So that's an important topic for everyone to know in the company, but specifically the CEOs that may see this video or hear this podcast. What's the one thing that you would wish that every CEO understood about company culture?
I don't know. Maybe it sounds hard, but it's less about what you say, but how you say it. Because I think a lot of executives and CEOs, if they think about culture, they think immediately about what they communicate. It's about, oh, I'm going to go in front of a team in a town hall meeting or in an all hands meeting, and it's about what I say. It's about the bullets that I present to the organization, and that is going to shape culture. And I think people are much more like tuned to how you say it, how trustworthy you are, if this is marketing and chaka chaka, or if this is really you. So if you really want to shape culture as a leader, you need to stay authentic, and I would say you should have the trust that you can be authentic with your people, and your people will be able to deal with it. Because as I mentioned before, sometimes it's this, oh no, we can't be transparent about our difficult situation right now because people will be so worried. Yes, they might be worried, but if they have the feeling they know everything, they know how the company is doing, they will roll up their sleeves and help to get you out of that misery. And they will trust you also tomorrow. And when you then say like, hey, it's all great, they actually feel like, okay, we know it must be great, because when it wasn't great, we talked about it and nobody was afraid of it. So now when we're saying like it's all great, then we really can celebrate. So building this trust is essential, and you can only do that if you're authentic. For the good and the bad, yes. And probably the bad is even more powerful. Like if you're willing to do what a lot of others are not willing to do, probably that drives even more engagement and trust.
We've talked about Culture Amp as a tool, but I would like to ask you, what are the 3 top tools that every HR professional should use?
What I would say to every HR person is you need to have tool or a very, very professional system for what I would call people development and talent management. So how you, in a structured way, like take your organization, the people in your organization towards how they develop. Because I think humans are wired to learn and to develop and become better. And you need to do that in a structured way. And if it's structured, ideally it is supported by a tool. The second one we already talked about, I would say to get your foot on the ground so that you know what's really cooking, you need some kind of a tool that helps you do surveys and pulse checks. And ideally it should be external. That one needs to be external because because I have seen, and I actually have done it way years ago. But if you don't do it with an external one, your employees will not trust that you're not like trying to identify who wrote what or who gave which grades. And if that is still in the realm of possibility, then people will not be honest. So it should be an external partner. And the third one, and that is super generic, is AI. I mean, we are entering, or we have entered, the artificial intelligence space, and everything that we're doing is in the process of being changed or already changed. And so if you need to look into tools, look that you are competent and up to date on anything that happens in AI in principle, and also AI for the people function.
Any specific AI tool or just ChatGPT, Bard?
Well, I would start with ChatGPT because I think we still have not the proficiency of like the basics, for example, ChatGPT. So I think there's still so many employees out there that do not totally feel comfortable about using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is, also teaching them how to do prompting properly, because they feel like, I didn't like the answer, and then they're frustrated and then they stop or go back to Google or whatever. But it's like, no. Like, you just need to learn, like, so to give people really this proficiency to deal with AI, but also, I would say, especially the recruiting tools that have developed so dramatically over the last year and a half, with adding AI to help you summarize CVs, or with actually judging like competencies, or also matching postings versus candidate profiles, and etc. So there's so much going on. So I would advise everyone in HR to like try to be up to date of what's cooking, because this is a revolution. It's not just a small evolution.
What are the top 3 skills that every HR professional should develop right now? And AI is not a valid answer because you already used it.
You're mean. Okay, so 3. Well, I'm. So you only said AI. I can't say, so I'm going to say something else that I said before. For me, HR, from all topics that we are privileged to work on, the biggest beast, the most complex one of all, is company culture. Because assessing, as we talked about, is one thing, but really to understand how to shape company culture, how to get from stage A to stage B, I think is the most complex topic that we manage of all topics. So I believe, especially in an AI world where a lot of more tactical, process-driven stuff is going to maybe disappear or will be done by machines better than us, I think company culture will elevate even further in the priority list. So every HR person out there, try to become a culture champion. Like start by reading books or listening to YouTube tutorials. Get a network of people where you can exchange. Try to get mentors and. So that would be number one capability or skill or competency that I would say. The second one is I think in the crazy times we're living right now, leaders are becoming even more important. So helping leaders become better leaders, I would say, is the second competency. It would go a combination of being a good coach, because if you want to make one leader a better leader, you need coaching skills, but it doesn't end there. I think also you need to have a concept of what good leadership looks like, and you need to understand leadership philosophies, etc. So I would say that would be the second one. And the third skill would be probably building trust, because the foundation of anything we do in business, and especially in human resource or people functions, is trust. As I mentioned at the beginning, where you said, like, well, are you like the employer and they're already afraid of you, or are you actually somebody that you can talk to? This skill, and you're not born or not born with it. Some people do have an easier way to get other people to trust them, but it is a skill and you can learn it. And so I would encourage everyone to like embark on that journey of how to build trust. These would be my three.
So every guest that comes to this show, in the end, I like to ask them if they could recommend someone that I could invite to be the next guest for this show. So in the same way, I would like to ask you, who do you think would be an interesting guest for me to approach?
I would say Anna Ott. Anna Ott is the people lead at HV Capital.
Challenge accepted. The last thing that I normally ask the guests of the show, especially when they have a generalistic HR profile like yourself, Quilco, is I bring two topics that are HR related, and I ask the person to choose one of those topics, like being more important to that person. Then the one that is not chosen goes away, and I bring another one, and you compare again. And we keep doing this, and then in theory, Quilco, in the end, will get the topic, the HR topic that is the most relevant for you. Are you up for the challenge?
Sounds great. So it sounds like a dating app. Like, do you like her better or her?
Let's start left or right and see in the end what happens. So let's see which one stays until the end. So between talent acquisition and training and development.
Oh, that's already a hard one.
All of them.
Getting people on the bus, or how to develop people that are on the bus already. People development.
Between training and development and compensation and benefits.
People development.
Training and development versus performance management.
People development.
People development and employee relations.
People development.
People development against workforce planning and HR analytics.
Oh, definitely people development.
Okay. People development and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Ooh, that goes hand in hand. I'm cheating here because I would consider it as part of people development. I stick to training and people development, but that's a hard one.
People development and HR technology and systems.
People development.
Last one. People development versus engagement and retention.
Would you, from your understanding, is engagement also now the topic that we discussed today, culture?
Well, there was no culture being asked directly, so I would say this could be the culture-related topic, yes.
Then I would move to the culture topic.
So then, Quilco, engagement and retention above all.
I would have guessed that sometimes just the pure fact of leadership comes, and then I would have picked that one as my top one, but it didn't come up, so therefore I'm happy with the choice.
Thank you very much for being in the show.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
I enjoyed and I learned a lot from you. Thank you for everything you shared.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.